I could go back to being an electrician.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
still have the toolbox here. So
I know that story. I've been on that story too. But your background as an electrician, obviously HNMV will be mech and elect. Correct me if I'm wrong. So obviously fits directly into the model that you're working within, along with your electrician.
geez, 90, God, you're getting me going now. About 18 years, 20 years again. So yeah.
Wow.
So 1992, I did my apprenticeship. So it was FOSS back then. And it was quite funny thinking about it. FOSS back then was just known as Fools at School. And, and to be honest, that perception is still there with
You
around
reckon?
apprenticeships. Million percent, million
Seriously,
percent.
yeah.
If I see it, I have conversations. It's you go to any secondary school, doesn't matter in the UK or Ireland, all the standards, all the grading of schools is based about how many kids get to go to university from that school every year. um there my absolute passion and philosophy is schools should prepare kids for whatever they want to do. Give them the tools that they can go out into the world, go to university absolutely if they want. And I went to university in later life, and fantastic experience. But I
Mhm.
really believe there's a lot of kids being told, oh, university is where you need to go to be a success. They end up with degrees, and huge financial pressure on parents to send kids to university. You go and do an apprenticeship, doesn't matter what it is. You're paid from the get go. Okay, it's not great, but it's something, and you're learning a trade, and you go to Solus as it is now in blocks, and it's something that schools really need to grasp, I think. And
Mhm.
here in London now, it's probably 400 quid an hour to get any tradesman into your house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What about the parents though, Tom? Do they not have a bit of lifting here to do? Because, you know, it's
Yeah.
all very well saying the school, but the school kind of, I would say, is getting more, it's more sterilized in terms of they can't say this and they can't do that, and
Yeah.
they have to be very PC about how
Yeah.
they manage kids. Whereas the parents kind of have a free, well, pretty much not a free, but like they have an ownership here as well, or some part of it. We say to get the construction guys into the schools to sort of educate the kids. Really, should we not be educating the parents?
100%. And what is a tradesman's experience now working on one of the big pharma plants, one of the big data centers. He is
Hmm.
walking into an office environment. We're not working out of the back of vans anymore. There's not muck and
Yeah,
whatever else everywhere. These are highly skilled professionals, either mechanical, electrical, BIM, CAD, all this stuff, highly skilled people putting together really complex projects. And,
mm,
and, I go back to it. So I joined Sure Engineering as an electrician in 2000. So I was 8 years into my time, and I come back from Scotland. I was in the North Sea for a while, and came back to Sure Engineering. And the first job I worked on them was Wyatt's, as it was at the time, in
I
Grange
remember.
Castle.
Yeah,
And that you look at all the guys that were in there working with me, and girls, not too many of them, but there was a few. And
yeah,
you look across the industry now, they're all MDs, operations directors, heading up Europe, heading up this for all the big
yeah,
players like Mercury, Shure, STS, you name it. And
yeah.
that was a real first step. And if they were to build that project today, so there were 700 electricians on that job back
Hmm.
then, and it took 2.5, 3 years. You'd now have 150 probably tradesmen and women on that job, and to be built in 8 months. You know,
Hmm.
so you look at how it's refined, how professional it is, how well managed it is, and
Yeah.
the expertise and skill. Around all of this, it's been a phenomenal journey, both in Ireland but equally in the UK, and we're seeing it right across Europe now with all the Irish companies that are out there. The skill set is just phenomenal.
It does build confidence in companies to invest in countries if they see that there is a mature way of managing people and you know producing top quality people, and Ireland and the UK being a classic example of the likes of LinkedIn and Facebook producing headquarters not just for tax reasons. That they know that if they build a product in those countries, they're going to be built with a high spec, high quality, and they don't have, in your case, a fatality on the project, or if there was an event to go wrong, they know they can trust these people to deal with these sort of ad hoc or catastrophic events. And investing in people, pardon the pun, does have a value. Um, but I suppose it's still not dropping to the challenge of finding these people and getting people into construction. What are you doing in your own company in terms of models that we could probably learn from?
Yeah, so H&MV, um, actually, it feels like I've gone full circle here. So H&MV came out of Sure Engineering. So
Yeah,
there was a guy from County Clare, Milton Malby, very famous Irish traditional musician, Jerry Phelan, founded H&MV as an offshoot of Sure Engineering back in the 90s.
yeah,
And HV specialists, substations, providing transformers, connecting to the grid. But H&V now have evolved through PJ Flanagan and John Stokes into what it is today. And if you look at it now, we develop battery storage solutions and data center substations. That's our
yeah,
core work, renewables. And just within that, we now have a bespoke training center in Tipperary. And a lot of if you look at a lot of the big companies, they're bringing the training in house themselves, and
really.
and and they're taking it, not taking it away, probably isn't the right word, but they're doing it in conjunction with Solus. So as I said, back in the 90s, we went to Merview in Galway, we went to the Foss Centre, and you did the full year's apprenticeship there.
Yeah,
And now, if you look at all the big players, they've brought it in house. They're training people to an exceptional standard, really
mm,
professional. It's like you go to any of the big four in the financial services industry. You're put on a pathway: year one, year two, year three, year four. You want to branch different areas, different departments. There's a full pathway now for career and all of that. And you know, dignity and respect. It's done in a really professional way. There's no more effing and blinding and all this kind of stuff that used to go on,
yeah,
and it's a corporate environment now. That's what I'd say, and that's the message we have to get out. That construction, big construction, M&E, CSA, whatever it is, companies are real corporate entities now with proper
mm,
pathways, proper support. Come in, you're neurodivergent, you're whatever it is. There's support there. There's EAP systems in place for anybody suffering any kind of difficulties. All that, the
yeah,
full package is there, and that's the gap that's been missed, I think. And probably businesses have more to do, but the construction industry has more to do in this space as well, in highlighting this. And I think what we need to do is the GA use it in ladies football a lot. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So
yeah,
we need to get people out in front of all of this and go, X amount of years ago, I was an apprentice, or I couldn't afford to go to university, or whatever the story is, and today I am this, this, and this.
yeah, yeah.
And that's you know kids see and want to be what's positive out there.
I think, if you don't mind me saying
No.
so, I think we're still stuck in the old school way of educating people, that you think that if you go to a conference or if you have this major construction conference that you're going to raise the awareness of construction within the industry. You're not raising the awareness. You're basically just meeting the same people that within the industry, and you're not bringing anybody new to the table, and you're not educating people. Like, I don't know, whenever I've never seen a TV ad to say why people should get into construction. Now, I'm not saying that TV is probably a dead duck, as we know, but TikTok is where we had this
Yeah.
off chat, but believe it or not, TikTok is where it's at, in terms of bringing in the hearts and minds and winning the hearts and minds. We don't have role models in construction that we celebrate, and that's a really missed opportunity. I feel they don't have to have won an Olympic gold medal to be a role model. They can be a person that can demonstrate that because construction gave them a life and an opportunity, this is where they are today. I remember having somebody on the podcast, and he was so proud of where he came from in terms of where he got to today being in construction. And it wasn't that he achieved anything major other than the fact that he loves his job, and he gets paid well for it, and he bounces into work every day, and it comes off him in buckets. We don't celebrate these heroes.
Yeah, and I'm smiling here. So my partner says to me, "I do this job for nothing." You know, that's
Yeah,
and I love it, and I'm really passionate about it, and I'm passionate about the business and all of that. But like as I said at the beginning, I come from rural west of Ireland, a place called Tourmakeady, a Gaeltacht out in between Ballinrobe and Westport.
yeah,
And as my career progressed, I ended up anyway during COVID being director with EDF, the energy company over here in
I know
in
them.
in, in the UK. And
Yeah,
I remember sitting on a meeting, and there was a guy there who had just come out of a Cobra meeting with Boris Johnson, telling us, about COVID, and it was about to break and all this kind of stuff. And I remember sitting there going, "How have I ended up here?" Honestly, and it's I've been thinking about it over the last few days when this was coming up, and I was just I'm as clear as that. And I remember sitting on a Teams call at home, locked down, going, "How have I gone from there to this?" You know, and
was
and
that the imposter syndrome kicking in there,
oh, I tell you,
Tom?
alive and well, yeah, absolutely. All these plummy English accents all over the place, and me joining in, but and success is measured in different ways. Like I see success now for me as being fully fulfilled by this job, and fully empowered and fully valued, as opposed to being a director of this or that. I've met some amazing people who, you know, were satisfied being a foreman or a project manager, or
Yeah,
it's a work life balancing. If you're happy and work and content, it
yeah,
filters into every other aspect. Because just on a personal note, there was a recent time in my career where I wasn't valued, and it's insidious and how it seeps in
wow,
to your whole psyche and your whole being. It's really quite toxic. So success shouldn't, in my opinion, be measured by how far up the career ladder you've gone or whatever it is. But it's about it's about just personal fulfillment, and apprenticeships and traveling the world. And I've been in Kazakhstan, I've been in the North Sea, been to China, Nigeria, wherever. Stuff I'd have never done if I, well, maybe I would, but I don't think I would have,
mm,
if I just went to university and got a degree in whatever, right?
yeah.
Um, and it's incredible. Like I was reflecting on the year we're talking about being, just being out of work. I've been out of work, I think, 4 weeks in
Wow,
whatever it is now, since 1992.
wow. It just
Yeah,
goes to show you, and you've gone through recessions in that
recessions. Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So the construction trade still kept going, and through COVID,
COVID. Yeah,
construction was still going. All right, they had a blip at the start, but then they opened it up slowly, and it was a valued service. It needed to be done.
correct.
As you know, the Chinese built a hospital, for God's
Correct.
sake.
Yeah, yeah, and we were finishing up the Tottenham Stadium at that stage, and we were working on Battersea Power Station. We had 2,000 people in there, and I
Wow.
remember, you kind of think about things, and you have a guy coming in a van looking for 25 grand in cash for a van load of masks and a hand sanitizer because they needed to be on the site on on,
Wow.
on Monday morning.
No
And
way.
and I absolutely can tell you, if I hadn't had the background in agility and on the trade and on the tools and that kind of stuff to face that kind of it builds such resilience and
Yeah.
thinking on your feet and being self-sufficient and all that kind of stuff. Incredible to have a trade. I'm really, really proud of it.
Talk to me. I might steer this in a different direction, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But I'll come back to you, because it is a core topic. What we want to discuss is how do we attract people. Addiction and
Mm,
mental health issues in construction. It keeps coming up on the
yeah.
podcast. Where are you at with that? Because I'm saying to myself, I'm thinking, I'm connecting the dots. If I'm a parent, I'm thinking, I listen to this podcast and going, yeah, I want Johnny or Jane to get into construction because they can do marketing and they can do all a load of different stuff or whatever else. But I'm hearing bad stories about, yeah, drinking culture and addictions and mental health issues.
Yeah.
Does the construction industry add to these problems, or is it just that because it's not as a high barrier to entry in terms of getting into a job that we're dealing with all this problem at a mass scale?
I think there's been huge progress made in this topic and around this topic over the last 3 or 5 years. And I think there's go back and just take a step back. 20 years ago, health and safety was all about get your hard hat on, get your boots on, and then it moved to have you got your safe pass and your CSCS cards and your dumper driver cards and all that, and tickets and all that.
Mm.
And it's moved from there now to there's a real conversation and a real awareness that if you have people coming to work in, and they're bringing their problems from home with them, that's a risk to the business. Safety risk, quality risk, all kinds of risk. People are off
Yeah.
sick, all that kind of stuff. And we are doing huge work over here with the Lighthouse Charity in the UK, and across the group them in Ireland as well. That they're doing a lot around all of this. And I think what we haven't fully grasped yet is the nomadic lifestyle around construction.
Correct. Brilliant.
Predominantly men working away from home, staying in
Yeah.
digs, B and B,
Isolation.
that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking out of school here. So when I was with
No.
EDF, we were involved in Hinkley Point down in
Yeah.
Somerset.
Still going.
9,000 mainly men clocking in and out down there every single day onto that project. And we spoke about it. It was up and running during COVID and post COVID and all of that. And it's a long way from any kind of urban base down
Yeah.
there. And you had people traveling 10 hours, Monday to Friday, working in Somerset and heading back to wherever, north of England, Scotland, Wales, wherever, and having, there were huge issues down there, gambling, addiction issues, and that. And what they developed out then was, five-a-side football, got teams up and running, and there was a real sea change around the issues they initially had down there, and it became a hugely positive place to work. So I think we as an industry have a lot more to do in this space. Having people working, 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock Monday to Thursday, they go
Yeah.
back to their digs or BBs, I said, and they've nothing to do.
Brilliant. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's a massive point, and it hasn't actually been covered that much in the podcast in terms of the off time. What are you doing in the off time? What's your mindset? What do you like? Like we don't ask the guys like what is your interest? Do you like doing reading books? Let's create a book club. It's not
Yeah, it
flaky.
doesn't matter. Yeah,
Personally speaking, I do hot and cold most days, and you end up actually creating a whole network of people that love to do hot and cold plunges and stuff like that on a daily basis. Groups like that, like you find your own level with people if you can sort of create these sort of scenarios. And I don't think I don't know any companies in construction that look outside the box and go, hold on a minute, is it a five-a-side? Is it paddle tennis? Is it swimming? Is it whatever else other
yeah,
than isolation and this sort of time gap between 6 o'clock in the evening and 10 o'clock at night?
yeah.
That's where the evil starts.
Correct. And traditionally, a lot of people stayed in B&Bs in their own room or in hotels, travel lodges or
Yeah,
whatever. And one thing we're really kind of conscious of here in the UK and across the wider group is putting guys together in a house.
yeah,
Because they're on projects for 6 months. A nice, comfortable house with a proper kitchen, proper setup, and if you have to buy them, 30, 40 quid's worth of food every week and put it into the house, so it's there for them, and they start cooking, and there's a bit of this and that around it. It takes that boredom away, and we're dealing. I'll never forget it. Years ago, it was said to me, "Oh, we have to keep things dumb in construction industry because they all read the Sun newspaper." You know, we have to, and that was said to me by somebody really senior in a business when we were
wow,
rolling out our program. And again, the mindset here is, well, they all go down the pub and they
mm,
want the slot machines. We're talking about highly educated, highly capable people.
yeah,
Generally between, let's say, 25 and 40. And the pub and this kind of stuff is not of an interest to a lot of that generation anymore. So how do we
yeah,
keep them stimulated? What is the hook to bring them in? Because
yeah,
you talk to any kids coming out of university now or anything, you know, they're interested in the role and the job and the salary, of course, but it's all this other stuff. Work
yeah,
life balance. How can you fulfill me as an individual, and,
yeah.
and and satisfy me in other ways outside of work and all of that kind of stuff. And there's a huge amount of work being currently done on it, but my God, it has a long way to go yet.
That's a long way. I remember working as an antidote. I remember working in the Isle of Man for a construction company back in the day, and couldn't find labor. Obviously, being an island, so a lot of the stuff was being imported in terms of labor. So you had the guys that were coming off the oil rigs. who
Mhm.
might have a bit of downtime, and they would head to the island to do, not just pick up a bit of work, but to do everything else, drink and mess and cause havoc, basically.
Yeah.
But then you had people that were genuinely being brought in from mainland UK and Ireland to do these jobs. And there was a QS guy that came across, and I bonded with him. He's really dead sound guy, a couple of years older than me, and his thing was he had to go out every night. Now I wasn't a big drinker, and but he had to be out every night, and he didn't drink. So I ended up having a few points. The next thing I was having a few points every night. Then it was because like he insisted that he had to go out. But what I didn't realize, what he disclosed to me later on, was that he had an addiction to gambling, and it wasn't that he it was the fact that he had to go somewhere, and he knew that if he stayed in the B&B or whatever it was, he was goosed, that the time was going to crack him. So he leveraged me, which got me in trouble because I ended up having a few points every night, and I had to put a stop to that. I was like, this is going nowhere for me. But I'll never forget him saying to me, because the other part of that was there was a casino on the island, and I think it's still there, but it was a betting island as well. And he used to walk by it. And he said, make sure I never go in there, Gavin. Make sure I never go in there." And I said, "Yeah, no problem, 100%." And I was like, I had this ownership to manage him every night. That we didn't go near the casino, but eventually it did get him, and he did go in on a night that I wasn't there, and that was it. He was gone. We never seen him again, and married with kids and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it was devastating because it stuck with me to this day. It was kind of
Yeah.
like, whatever happened to him, I don't know. But I still think about, you know, the rawness of his addiction.
Yeah.
And we don't probably risk assess, and you're in the risk assessment business, probably are individuals enough in terms of how do we buddy them up
Correct.
with the right character. Maybe you could
Correct.
give us a bit of a
And
steer on that.
you're talking about something there, and we're not going to go off track here, but he had to physically go to a casino to gamble. You can do it on your phone now, and no one knows.
True.
You can lose the house overnight, and no one would ever know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So, you know, again, something I'm mentoring and supporting, and all of this kind of stuff. And
Mm.
I'm sure lots of people that you've spoken on here have had mentors. And for me, it was Paul Crummins, Sure Engineering. He's just incredible. Like he's like been
Yeah.
like a father in work to me for 30 years, and he kind of what did he bring to all of that was be proud to have a trade, come in, be dressed as a tradesman. He was real old school, and,
Yeah.
and when everybody else was shouting and banging tables and telling people what they really thought of them in the 90s and noughties, he was totally different.
Wow.
And it's real. And you talk to others, and I'm not going to start naming names, but people who are really successful out of Sure Engineering and different businesses now and stuff. And to this day, he's still a mentor to them. And
Yeah.
and if you have an anchor like that you can just go back to, and you trust, and your tough times or whatever, and working from away from home is, there's addictions, but there's also working away from the wife and the kids and
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. And you look around the construction industry, and the toll that takes. And
Yeah.
mentoring and support and trying to get people to open up, but we have to create the culture around that as
Yeah.
as leaders in the industry. If and one thing I've really noticed over the last couple of years, especially here in the UK, dealing with graduates, they'll come
Yeah.
in and tell you, I've got ADHD, I've got this, I have a fear of this, whatever it is. They will absolutely come out and tell you. And our job then as leaders and mentors in the business is to go and support that, and
Yeah.
think outside the box. And it's we are failing in that.
Mm.
We're not where we need to be in that as well.
Yeah. Well, we're also creating a scenario where the kid is at home, and the wife or the husband or whatever it is, and their partner comes in the door from a hard day's work, and they've spent the last 3 or 4 hours drinking, and the child or the children are listening to rows going on and everything else, and they're linking construction to that
Yeah.
conversation and that row and that chaos and that trauma. And, they're saying to themselves, well, I'm not going to get caught up in construction because, if that's what construction's all about, I don't want to be part of it. I want to run
Mm.
away from it as much as possible. So we do have an obligation or the duty to make sure that whatever conversation is going back into the house, that it is a positive conversation about construction. It's probably something we don't think about in terms of a negative for the construction industry. You guys having your academy, talk to me about that, because I will tell you this. I heard about that academy and I was very impressed in terms of you were probably one of the first ones to really sort of say, right, you know what? Let's set up our own academy. Let's set up a whopper of a training school, um, sort of creating your own conveyor belt of talent. And you've reaped the rewards for that, because I know some of the clients that you work for, we work for some of them as well. And you got the respect because you put the foot forward and you said to yourself, you know what, we're not going to wait for the client to tell us what to do. We're going to do it. And they're just going to follow us because they're going to say, you put the investment in, we trust you.
Yeah, and so HV engineering is very specialized, and there's if you think there's a skills shortage in M&E or in general construction, HV is just a
Very
totally
niche.
different level, very niche, and
Yeah.
like the demand. Demand from data centers for HV connections, demand from renewables, but then you've got the networks and the grid. So, you know,
Yeah.
um, um, National Grid here in the UK are in Ireland or whatever it is, they have to upgrade to keep up with this pace, and
Yeah.
so everybody needs them. So they're bringing in girls and boys at 18, 19 years of age, and from day one, then this is the culture of HMV. We will train you to the highest levels. John Stokes, before he left the business, set up a whole training program. Year one, year two, year three, year four, year five, and there's a whole mentorship program around that, and it's hugely successful. And if you it's a bit like McDonald's and the Happy Meals. If you get them young enough, you have them for life. And that's kind of where we're trying to go here. We're looking at future leaders in the business, and there's a 3 to 5 year plan around it. But equally, it's okay if you don't want to be a project manager or a project director. If you are happy getting into the van every day and being a HV technician, 100%, we will
Yeah.
support you in that. And so it's everything is available to wherever you want to go in this business. Like, take the UK business here, we're growing at 40% year on year. We can't keep hiring in
No.
externals, and it's not the right way to do things anyway.
No. Not at that
uh,
scale.
Not at that kind of scale. I
No.
joined 2 years ago. There were 40 million quid. We're north of 200 million this year. 2030
Wow.
will probably be 650 somewhere.
Wow.
And we have to bring people up with us. And I'm the wrong side of 50 now, and I'm beginning to see it, that I want to create a legacy for
Yeah.
people coming through, so that you'll be talking to somebody in 10 years time, they go, geez, that old fella from Mayo there he was a great support to me in my career. and,
Yeah.
and I'm we're all kind of looking towards building a legacy in a future that the experience would be better for the next generation coming through. And I think that's a big part of the construction industry as well. We
Yeah.
know what rough looks like, and we know what bad culture looks like, and
Mm.
other words around people as well that we've all dealt with. We all know what that looks like, and we don't want it for the kids coming through now. And I think if we get that right, it will support mental health. It will support, addiction issues. It
Yeah.
will help alleviate that. But we have an onus here, to create that culture and bring these kids and people in their mid-20s through.
But we also need to celebrate these heroes that are
Oh yeah,
the unsung heroes that are sitting in these construction projects and not being utilized to go back into the communities. Like,
correct.
there's one of our clients. I remember back in the day, they had a individual senior, would have a senior guy, woman, 50, 60 years of age. And their role was basically to make sure the community knew that they had a point of contact to go to should they have a problem with whatever was going on in the community. And that individual would also cherry pick young guys and girls in the local community for apprenticeships. and that person, that role was made redundant a good few years ago within that. And I still talk to the client, people with that client, and they say removing that person was one of the biggest mistakes we ever made. They had that person in every community right around Ireland, and because of new generation, new workplace, new way of doing things, everything was centralized back to HQ, and that individual's role became redundant. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if we had these heroes in our local community? Just, they mightn't be able to push out as much production in terms of construction, take them off the production floor for construction and have them in the communities, a couple of hours a week, even if it's involved with the local GEA teams or whatever else, being backed by the companies to get in on the grassroots and to educate the local community as regards, the brand of construction and why it's so important, and a great opportunity as well for people.
Yeah, and I think there's a piece we need to put a bit of pride back into the trade. If you look, if you it's something you hear quite a bit, and it's, oh well, we don't need electricians anymore. We're building everything off site and modular buildings, or we don't need block layers, or we don't need
Hmm.
plasters. And you look at the recession in Ireland whenever it was around 2008, and a lot
Mm.
of construction people went into the factories, into the farmer factories, and never came out, never came back out again, because it was clean. They got
Yeah.
paid once a month, guaranteed, and the 23rd of every month they got paid, and all of that. And a big business like H&V, or whoever else, we can manage the cash flow. If we miss, if we don't get paid, by a client and it's a week late, okay, it's a problem, but it's not a huge problem. But if you're a
Yeah.
man in a van and you're working for one of the big contractors and you don't get paid for a month for whatever reason, you're gone.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and there really needs to be a grown up conversation, and a contract, terms of engagement here. you know okay, Mr. Big Contractor, I will come and I'll work for you and I'll do work, but you pay me every month and don't lagarde me. And there's a bit of that going on, and I think we need to have that
Yeah.
kind of an honest conversation as well here. That, what's the first thing that hammer the subby to
Yeah.
bring back the margin. And
Bring
it's
back
not
the
it's
margin.
not
Yeah.
this it's not the subby with the 100 people on the job. It's the man in a van or the woman in a van. They're the first to get hit. And
Yeah.
we need to kind of have that debate as well here around attracting people in. Especially if people want to be self-employed, or smaller contractors, we have to kind of support that as well.
Oh, 100%. And I've brought up this particular scenario or case study, if you like. I had somebody on the show a good few episodes back, but their model, Tom, was to not go outside the rural area that they were from as a company. And it's different for you. You guys have scale, and that's why you know companies trust you, because they know you can bring that scale to their Denmark or whatever it is. But there is also beauty in being small and niche and market sized to your niche within the local area. And what got me was the owner of the business was saying to me, we attract people who don't want to travel. So we're getting fantastic people that would normally work for someone like yourselves, but they want to be close. They want to be home with the kids and the wife or the partner
Mhm.
in the evenings, and we pay them less, but the value is more.
Well,
So
you're
like,
fulfilling the individual. See, the individual's wants and needs is being met,
yeah,
and that's key. And it doesn't matter what you're doing in life, if and be it work or recreation or whatever it is. I'm a runner, and I go out and run, and people go, "Jesus, how do you go out and run?" Right? 8K
yeah,
or whatever. But for me, I come back, and I'm energized, and all of that kind of thing. So
yeah,
people want to stay at home. People want to travel. H&V now are setting up in Texas, in Fort Worth,
right,
and in a big way. And it's quite new at the minute, and it's really exciting and all of that. And the amount of people internally, both in Ireland and the UK, have put their hands up and said, "I want to go for a few years."
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
and then you have the other side of people that don't want to go outside of Limerick
yeah,
office, the Limerick region, Tipperary, wherever it is. So we
yeah,
have to cater for everyone, because everyone can't go traveling, but equally everyone can't stay at home. So it's about creating that holistic approach, and everybody in the business. If we're meeting everybody's needs that's currently in the business, that'll just bring more people in. because they will
Yes.
go, they're the messengers, they're our customers, really, if that's what you want to say. They'll go
Mm.
out, they will tell their cousins who are doing leaving cert, H&MV or whoever it
Yeah.
is. Great place to work, great culture. You know, we I'm bringing in graduates now who have no experience in construction industry into my HSE team. We have admin. So we have a girl who was an administrator in one of our offices. Put her hand
Mm.
up 2 years ago. She now heads up. She had a degree in psychology. She now heads up our mental health strategy here in the UK. You know, high performer. Didn't know anything about health and safety the day she came in, but you know what? She's one of our best performers in the team.
There
So
you go.
imagine that resource and that talent. If we
Yeah.
hadn't set it up in a way to attract her in, we'd have never known she was there. You know.
Yeah, well, I think you're leading me into a path that I would probably be another podcast, but I'm gonna hit you with it anyway, Tom. It's the interview process really as well. Is I think we're going wrong. Because we have to have this PC way of talking to people in an interview. We're not allowed to ask them what they like to do outside of work and stuff like that. Do you think we need to do something in that area to sort of
Yeah.
start with the individual first and work our way back to the skill set last?
Yeah, 100% right. Because I went, I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, and it's still to a degree. If somebody told 20-year-old me, Tom, you're going to be health and safety, I'd be like, no interest in
Yeah,
that. No
yeah,
interest in that. But you know, you have to start with the person and what motivates them and what interests them, and everything else will fall into place after that. And I'm at a stage in life now, and my philosophy has always been, walk through the door. You can always come back. But if you don't
yeah,
walk there, through that door, you'll always spend the rest of your days going, geez, what if I took that
yeah,
chance for opportunity? And I'm trying to really instill that into my own kids, but into graduates coming in. Go to Texas for 2 years. If it doesn't
yeah,
work out after 6 months, well, at least you tried. You know now what you don't want to do.
yeah,
Which a lot of people who go right through their careers, and I think in the early '90s, as I said, back with Wyatt and all of these when they were starting up in Ireland, it was the Wild West. We didn't have BIM modelers, or we didn't have anybody that really understood anything about pharma. And,
yeah.
and and people put them into positions to learn. And you look around the industry today, and Jacobs and PM and all of these
Mm,
huge design houses, a lot
mm,
of them come from trade backgrounds, and they started in the pharma. And I think the opportunity for us with AI is something similar, and data
yeah,
centers. It's
mm,
another step change. But you're 100% right about the interview process and kids. And if you can hook them into something that interests them outside of work, and facilitate that in work,
yeah.
that's it.
100.
You've cracked it.
Well, the obvious question that you should be asking them is like, what does a good life look like for you? And like, because they're focused on, I want to get this job. It's 65,000 a year. It's company car, whatever. They're going to train me up in your lovely training center, whatever else. But the real question is, what does a good life look like for you? Like, how do we make that life good for you? So, do we need to get are you poor with finances? Are you just not with it in terms of managing? I'll give you 65 grand. Yeah, you'll get the job. What are you going to do with the 65 grand? I'm going to go, well, 65 grand, I can buy a brand new car for 50 grand and put it on tick. You know what I mean? And no, that's not a good idea. Let's put you with our financial guru within the business who can put up a financial wealth plan for you so that you're investing in yourself and then your family for the future, etc., etc. We don't do that in the business. Now, not a lot of other companies, probably in other industry sectors, don't do it either. But I've had this conversation on the podcast with people. Is like, why are we not doing that stuff? Why are we not, like, the amount of people? I remember doing a exercise for a UK company, and we brought in guys for interviews. Couldn't understand it. Couldn't understand the payslip. Couldn't read the payslip properly. We were talking to them. Well, what does this line here? And it's not that they were from a different country. They were UK based people, and
Yeah,
mostly, and that they could not read the payslip properly. They couldn't tell
yeah,
you why. And when you asked them, says, is that the same figure that you got last week? No, it's a different figure last week. Why was it different last week? Couldn't tell you.
yeah. And there's a big piece, and in Ireland and the UK as well, around, well, I want to be self-employed. I want to be a contractor as opposed to coming direct with the business. Oh, well, it's more money. But if you balance it all out and look at it,
Yeah, mental.
you have the tax man to deal with. Like here in the
Yeah,
UK, there's a huge piece now, IR35, I think it's called,
or
and
35.
a
Yeah,
huge amount of people have been caught out, not through anything
massive.
malicious,
Yeah,
just didn't understand, as you said.
Yeah.
And but I'll go back to it. It's about the whole person,
Mm.
and if you support the whole person in the workplace, you'll have them for life. And
Yeah.
but and, that's where it is. They're not bodies to be just abused or get paddy behind the shovel, and that
Yeah.
philosophy that used to be here in London years ago. You
Yeah.
look at it now around the UK. The Irish are now leading projects. They're the directors. They're the MDs. They're the
Yeah.
whatever. There's a confidence in it. And it's incredible. But my dad came over here in the '60s and was a bit different.
Yeah.
So, does what do we set up now for the next generation to succeed in the industry?
We
That's the
don't buddy
challenge.
them up. We don't buddy them up, Tom.
Correct.
We buddy them up for the first week so that
Month.
they know where
Yeah.
the toilets are and where the canteen is, and to get around the site and who's who and what's what, and
Yeah.
then boom, you're on your
Yeah.
own. We don't have this buddy system of checking in with you. And the other thing as well is everybody has a different stage of their life within their career that we don't account for. So I might be having my first child, for example. My life is going to change as soon as that child comes into the world, as you know, and I know, whatever. And my circumstances will change and my mindset will change. And nobody checks in on a person with that and comes back to them and says, by the way, your life is going to change. You probably need a bit more support in terms of time to spend with your family. Can we look at will we look at your work hours? Will we look at your sort of financial well planning now that you've got another person to feed, etc., etc. We don't do any of that. Like, we talk about mental health, and I agree with some employers when you hear them say, look, come on, where are we going with this? Because now we have to help people in their personal life, which is coming into their work life, and things are getting a little bit too far stretched. In fact, that we have to, medically look after people in the workplace. But this scenario where people have different stages within their life, we do not, as a construction industry, manage that process at all, from what I see.
Yeah, and there are some conversations, and you get it a bit. So, this hybrid working from home. You have in any construction company, you've probably 50% office-based people who can work from home a couple of mornings a week. But the man or the woman who is a foreman, project manager, trades, they have to be on site, or crane driver, or whatever it is. They have to be on site every morning at 8 o'clock, and
Yeah,
they're looking across the fence, going, "Well, person X doesn't have to come in till 10 o'clock on a Tuesday because they like to drop their kids to school, or whatever it is." And
yeah,
and and one thing we found in culture surveys and stuff, this supporting the person is very rarely about money and wages. It's about this other stuff. My kid does X on a Wednesday morning or Wednesday at lunchtime,
yeah,
and I'd love an hour off to go and take
yeah,
them there or pick them up, or my
yeah,
partner does this on a Thursday. It's
yeah,
that kind of stuff. And if you
yeah,
could, and it's pennies,
yeah,
it's pennies.
yeah,
And the reluctance to, well, it's not a reluctance, I suppose, but it's, well, if the tradesman isn't, or tradeswoman isn't on site at 8 o'clock in the morning, the client is shouting at us, and we're not meeting program. But I'd reverse engineer that and say, if you've a well motivated, happy member of staff, and you say to them, yes, you can take an hour off on Wednesday morning, come in at 9 o'clock, but you work back Thursday evening for the extra hour.
yeah,
There'd be no debate about it. And they
yeah,
would give you 50% more every single day, because they get to bring X or Y or Z to whatever it is, or they're able to support that family life piece. You know,
yeah, brilliant.
and there's
Yeah,
a trade off here. And it cannot be about, as I said earlier, keep Paddy on the shovel and kill him working, and we'll make profit on it. It just can't be
yeah.
that.
Or like, I'm glad you said that, because people probably do drop off the kids and hope that nobody's going to cop that they're going to be a half an hour late or whatever else,
Right.
and now they've got this guilt conscience in their head that they're ducking and diving
Correct.
to try and keep the family going and the work going. And if we're all open and honest and say, look, by the way, I can't make it in, it's just not going to happen. Like, but back to culture, you brought it up. If you don't set the tone and have that open door policy, you're going to have all these little sort of nuances starting to create a toxic environment within the business.
Correct. And as somebody said to me the other day, doesn't matter what you do, we're all people. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter if you're the MD or you're the first year apprentice. We're all
yeah,
people, and we have the same wants and needs to a more or less degree, and
Yeah.
that's the secret here. And you know, I've been around, mental health, and I've suffered a bit maybe previously in the past around it, and you know, west of Ireland suicide, we know all about that. There isn't a family that
Yeah.
isn't touched, and you know, putting the investment in into your workforce and your staff, is a much more positive legacy than having an adult or a parent or a sibling or whatever commit suicide, because there's
Yeah.
just there's no debate around it.
Or someone said to me recently, there's two individuals in every person. There's a good and a bad side in everybody, and the good is great, and the bad just has to be looked after.
Yeah,
You can be sure there's a negative part to everybody, and that doesn't have to be categorized as mental health. That can just be your general makeup, and it's just who we are as people, and we just need to recognize it, and we need to create an environment where people can offload and have a mentor or somebody to go to. I think it's so important. I think this conversation could definitely do with another podcast, the way we're going. But I'm going to throw a few curved balls at you if
yeah.
you don't mind, just because we like to do it. Knowing what you know now, Tom Prendergast, what would you do different?
What would I do different? Wow. I'd have more confidence in myself. That would be, yeah. Yeah,
Right.
that's what I do. If I went back to 18-year-old or 19-year-old me, I would turn around and say, the world's your oyster, go and get it. That's what I would do different. You mentioned
Mm.
earlier imposter syndrome. I suffered with that up till 5 or 6 years ago.
Really,
100%. 100%. Yeah.
I would
I'll
never.
get find out.
Like, you're well known in the industry for what you do. Like you would. That's kind of set me back because you would be regarded as one of the leaders in your industry.
Mhm.
Imposter wouldn't have come across. But then you don't. You just again back to what we've just had a discussion on. You don't
Yeah.
know
Don't
what's
know.
going on with
No,
people.
no.
Wow.
Yeah.
Favorite
That's
book or movie, Tom, or both?
Star of the Sea. Love that book.
Right.
Yeah,
Talk to me. What's the
absolutely.
story with it?
An immigrant ship going to America. Just incredible. West of Ireland again. Growing up there, nobody in our village when I was growing up between 18 and 35 years of age. You know,
Yeah.
and it's something that just resonates with me.
Yeah.
So everyone to Boston, Chicago, London, whatever it was, come home at Christmas, great 2 weeks. Everyone heads off, and they bring the next crew with them as well.
Yeah. That's
Just
true. Very
you know,
true.
yeah,
Very true.
yeah.
Um, where's your go-to place, Tom? If you were to land somewhere in the world that you say to yourself, "Do you know what? That's me. That's me. I need to go there." Where is that? Where does that place be? Where is that draw destination?
Mm. God, anywhere around Mayo. So, like, I'm very lucky. Born on the shores of Loch Mask.
Wow.
There's nowhere like it. The
Yeah.
lake is across the road from me.
Yeah.
And you can hear the silence, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I live in London, ambulances, fire brigades shooting up
I
and
know.
down 24/7. And we talk about it here in the house as well. As you get older, you're kind of craving that kind of silence and
Yeah.
all of that. But yeah, and I have a house in Baldoyle. So, you go out to Howth, out along the coast there. Just
Fabulous.
incredible.
Scaries. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible up along the North
The
Dublin coast.
brother fishes the Corrib every year. He lives in the west of Ireland.
Yeah,
That's his go-to place, is get me to the Corrib once a year.
yeah.
Something of interest that not many people would be able to point and go, geez, I didn't know that about Tom. Now, Tom, be careful.
God, right.
Once
He's
you
an
be able to
honest,
have a
upright.
job on.
He's an
Once
honest,
you-
upright member of society. Don't know about me. Oh yeah. So Miley from Glenroe is a cousin of mine
Stop. Huh?
from Tourmakeady. Yeah, so he'd be my dad's best friend. Grew up together. They were like brothers. So yeah, there you go.
Miley couldn't keep it in his trousers, huh?
No,
He just.
Fidelma was a scut.
Tom, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I really enjoyed today's conversation. Again, could do another podcast out of it because there's
Yeah, anytime.
so much to do on that topic. Definitely worth coming back on again and just sharing some stories about how you're trying to tackle that issue as well. I know that you're doing a great job, so well done, and hats off to you and your company for doing that. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it, Tom?
Well, H&V, based down in Castletroy in Limerick. That's our head office. I spoke earlier just about the culture and being in a negative culture maybe previously in work, and it's a phenomenal business. As somebody said, it's almost got an energy like a startup business, and
Yeah,
and as my partner says to me, you kind of go and work for nothing for them, and I really would, and it's not just me saying that.
yeah,
Um, it's an incredible place to work, and I absolutely love the culture and the people, and it's great. Yeah, they'll find me on LinkedIn. It's
yeah,
as
Tom.
good a place as any. Tom Prendergast,
Yeah.
H&MV. And as you said, I'm well known around the place. So if somebody has my number somewhere, I mightn't answer the phone to them, but someone has my number somewhere.
Tom, thank you very much for
That's all.
your time and
Pleasure.
yeah, sharing some brilliant stuff there, and hopefully people can take a lot away from it. We'll definitely get you on again in the future,
Great.
and thanks very much again for joining the show.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Take care, pal.